The most valuable gem on Earth by weight is not a diamond. It never was. A single top-grade Colombian emerald, the size of your thumbnail, can sell for over $100,000. Gram for gram, it outprices diamonds, rubies, and sapphires combined. And yet, right now, somewhere deep inside the Andes Mountains, a man with a handheld drill and a headlamp is the only thing standing between that stone and the light of day. Colombia produces between 70% and 90% of the world's finest emeralds. The specific percentage fluctuates depending on the year, but the dominance never does. The Boyacá region alone, a stretch of rugged Andean terrain roughly the size of Connecticut, feeds a global market worth approximately $2.5 billion annually. Over 150,000 people in Colombia work directly or indirectly in the emerald trade. Miners, traders, cutters, exporters. Many of them in communities where the stone isn't just a commodity, it's a currency, a culture, and a generation-long inheritance. This is one of the oldest gemstone industries on the planet. The Muisca people were trading these stones centuries before the Spanish arrived. And today, the same mountains still hold billions of dollars worth of green fire locked inside black shale. Waiting. Step 1. Finding where the emeralds are hiding. Emeralds don't form the way most people imagine. They aren't scattered randomly through a mountain. They form in extremely specific geological conditions. Hydrothermal veins, where ancient volcanic fluids rich in beryllium and chromium pushed through sedimentary rock millions of years ago, cooling slowly and crystallizing inside narrow fracture zones called black shale hosts. The surprising part, these veins can be as thin as your forearm. A vein carrying $10 million worth of emeralds might be no wider than a car door. Geologists and experienced miners, many of whom learned the terrain from their fathers and grandfathers, spend weeks studying the mountain's surface, looking for weathered outcrops of carbonaceous shale, the dark, almost oily rock that tells you the hydrothermal system was active here. In some regions, companies bring in geophysical survey equipment that detects subtle density changes underground. In others, the old prospector's eye is still the most reliable tool in the field. Step 2. Opening the mountain. Once a target zone is identified, the real work begins. In Colombia's most productive mines, Muzo, Coscuez, and La Pita, mining happens through a combination of open pit and underground tunnel methods, depending on the depth of the mineralized zone. The open pit approach starts with controlled blasting. Drill crews bore holes 2 to 4 meters deep in a precise grid pattern across the face of the rock. Each hole is packed with ANFO, a mixture of ammonium nitrate and fuel oil, and detonated in a staggered sequence. The explosion doesn't just break rock. It sends a shockwave through roughly 5,000 to 10,000 tons of material in a single blast event. The sound isn't a bang. It's a deep, chest-compressing boom that echoes between the canyon walls for seconds afterward. The mountain doesn't fall. It shudders, fractures, and spills forward in a slow-motion avalanche of broken shale. The critical challenge: the emeralds themselves must survive. Poorly timed or overpowered blasting can shatter crystals that took 65 million years to form. Experienced blast engineers calibrate every charge to fracture the host rock while leaving the fragile veins intact. It is, in a very real sense, like cracking an egg without breaking the yolk, except the egg is a mountain, and the yolk is worth $100,000. Step 3. Moving the broken mountain. Immediately after a blast, enormous hydraulic excavators, the kind that weigh 80 to 120 tons and run on diesel engines producing nearly 600 horsepower, move in to scoop the shattered material and load it into haul trucks. These trucks, with tires taller than a full-grown man, carry 40 to 60 tons per load and run continuous circuits from the blast face to the processing area. In a single operational day, a major Colombian mine moves between 3,000 and 8,000 tons of rock. Think about that. Thousands of tons of mountain every day for a gemstone you could lose in your pocket. The sheer disproportionality of that ratio is the economic reality of emerald mining. For every ton of rock removed, a miner might find a few grams of emerald material. Top-grade crystals large enough for fine jewelry are rarer still. The economics only work because the final product, when exceptional, commands a price per gram that has no parallel in the natural world. Step 4. Where machines stop and human hands begin. This is the step nobody outside the industry expects. After the bulk material reaches the processing zone, the heavy machinery falls silent, and the most critical part of the operation becomes entirely manual. Workers called guaqueros, a term that translates roughly to treasure hunters, move through the broken shale by hand, using small picks, chisels, and occasionally high-pressure water hoses to break down softer material and expose potential crystal zones. The shale here is dark green-black, slick with mineral residue, and it splits in flat, layered sheets like pages in a book. When a vein is exposed, the work slows to almost surgical precision. A crystal cluster might be embedded inside a calcite matrix, a milky white mineral that formed around it. The guaquero chips away the matrix a millimeter at a time, feeling for resistance that signals the softer emerald crystal beneath. The temperature inside a deep working tunnel sits around 18 to 22 degrees Celsius, cool and damp, with the constant sound of dripping water and the metallic ring of tools on stone. The light from a single headlamp is all that stands between a discovered crystal and one that gets chipped in, half by an impatient hand. Some of these workers earn a base wage, but many operate on a split agreement. A percentage of whatever they find goes directly to them. In some tunnels, a single morning's work can change a man's financial life entirely. That possibility is what keeps the hillsides of Boyacá populated, with generations of men willing to work in conditions that most of the world would refuse. Step 5. The first moment of judgment. When a crystal emerges from its matrix, it doesn't look like what you'd see in a jewelry store. It's coated in black mineral dust, often partially translucent with inclusions visible along its hexagonal structure. Emeralds almost always carry what the industry calls jardin, the French word for garden, a term for the internal fractures, gas bubbles, and mineral inclusions that form during crystal growth. Here is the counterintuitive truth. In most gemstones, inclusions lower value. In emeralds, a completely clean stone is so rare it's considered suspicious. The jardin is expected. The finest Colombian emeralds are graded on a matrix of color intensity, transparency, and the nature of their inclusions, with the most prized stones displaying a vivid, slightly bluish-green hue produced by trace amounts of chromium and vanadium, a color so specific and so saturated it has its own industry name. Muso green. On-site buyers, known locally as esmeralderos, often appear at the mine gates within hours of a significant find. They carry loops and years of trained judgment. A stone that looks unremarkable to an untrained eye can be flipped, tilted under light, and immediately recognized as worth more than the average Colombian worker earns in a decade. Step 6. Water, waste, and what gets recovered. The processing of raw material generates significant volumes of slurry, rock dust, water, and fine mineral debris. Modern operations route this through settling ponds that allow sediment to fall out before water is recycled back into the process. Roughly 85% of process water in compliant operations is recirculated, reducing consumption in a region where freshwater access matters. The tailings, the leftover rock after processing, are graded and stockpiled. A portion is sold as construction aggregate. Some larger operations even run secondary hand-sorting operations on stockpiled tailings, knowing that low-grade emerald material occasionally missed in the primary sort can still be sold to the cabochon and carving market, which processes stones into decorative objects rather than faceted gems. Nothing of potential value is deliberately discarded. At the end of the chain, what began as a dark fracture in a Colombian mountainside has become a hexagonal prism of concentrated geological time, cleaned, evaluated, categorized, and prepared to travel. From Bogotá's gem trading district to dealers in New York, Geneva, and Hong Kong. From rough crystal to cut stone, finally set into something that will sit in a vault, or on a wrist, or under glass in a museum case for the next 100 years. The ring on someone's finger, the centerpiece of an heirloom necklace passed between generations, the green stone in a museum exhibit that visitors crowd around without ever asking how it got there. Every one of them started the same way, with a man in a tunnel, a handheld tool, and a mountain that had been keeping that secret for 60 million years. Next time you see a green gemstone, ask yourself, how many tons of rock moved so that stone could exist? And how many hands touched it before yours? If that question made you look at the world a little differently, you're in the right place. Subscribe, because this is just the beginning.